Hi y'all, this is Prism Witches. My name is Tig.
This is Isaiah.
I'm Cade.
I'm Rain.
And today we're talking about um, learning to be wrong. I had said this last time. I said that there was a different way of saying it, and you guys said that you liked the other way, but now I can't remember because my brain is shit. Do you remember?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So, what I mean by that is that there there is like a defense mechanism. Jesus, my throat needs some water. There's a defense mechanism in almost everybody. This is a psychological phenomenon that almost everybody goes through. That when you are when you come to understand that a belief that you have, an understanding of a certain part of the world is wrong, we react negatively because that's like attacking our identity. People um, who identify very strongly with their beliefs can get such cognitive dissonance from being wrong that they react with anger or even violence. And that's kind of a result of having too strong of a sense of self, too strong of confidence that you understand the way the universe works. And when you get into magic, when you start doing magic seriously, your understanding of the world is going to shift rapidly and it's going to shift often. Your understanding of yourself is going to shift rapidly and shift often. I'm not the first person, obviously, to ever say, like, you can use magic as a spiritual path to improve yourself, to heal your trauma. But this is like a fast track. This is when you start using magic to heal yourself, it works very well, and that means that healing in itself can be painful. It can be traumatizing to be shown something about yourself that is wrong. To be shown something that you understand the way the universe works, and you are wrong, and you have to let go of your old beliefs so that you can accept new realities. So I'm just
You
gonna
you
toss it out there. What do you guys think?
you basically have to. There's this concept called naive realism, where the way that you think of the world is the only way that it can exist,
Mm-hmm.
and you basically have to toss that entire ideology out of your head,
Right.
in order to really progress as a person. And like that doesn't even mean just magically, you know what I mean? Like just to be able to be a well-rounded person, you have to acknowledge that the way you see the world is not how everybody else sees it. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. And the you said something not just in magic. That's it was a few years ago where basically my magical practice and my mental health, healing journey combined to become the same thing because one feeds on the other. If you want to be better at magic, you need to heal, and so that goes into mental health. The more you heal, the better you get in magic. The more effective your magic gets because you are learning to trust yourself. You're learning to listen to your intuition and trust yourself, and you have to heal. And healing involves going through that trauma, releasing it, and that's not always a fun experience. And I think that a lot of because in magic, and I'm not talking about pagans, people who are consider themselves to be magicians first and foremost. Um, it's well known that you're risking, mental health, uh, your mental health by practicing magic, and I think a big part of that is because when you do get heavy into magic, like I said, you're going to have paradigm shifts, fucking all the goddamn time. and you have to develop a flexibility to change and to adapt, or else change is stress. So even though we have good change, we want to heal ourselves, and so we have to change something inside of ourselves, or we have to change something about our circumstances or our surroundings. So even though it's good change is still stress. So learning to manage stress, learning to manage big emotions it's fine. Is a big, to me, it's a good skill to develop in order to improve your magical practice.
Right. No, I agree. I was gonna say something and that threw me off. Okay, do you have anything to add?
Well, if Tig could maybe give us, if Tig possibly has a specific example of that change or that wrongness happening in the magical practice, and then the subsequent reconciliation, if it improved
Okay.
the magical path.
I mean, I could talk about what's going on in my life right now, if that's okay, because that includes 2 other people in the room. Are you guys okay with that? No? Okay. Okay, now I'm struggling to find another example.
Go ahead, it's fine.
There have to have been previous examples.
Oh,
It can't have all just happened in...
Yeah, there's so many. It's I'm trying to find one. We have to edit this part out. We're all like, Okay, so, there was a period of time in 2019 where I was going to therapy, and my therapist said, okay, now it's time to process your trauma. We need to focus on your PTSD and process your trauma. And I was like, what does that mean? And he was like, we're going to go deep into your traumatic events and relive them and release that trauma. And I was like, nope. And I stopped going to that therapist because I was scared. Now, once you say no, you're going to suffer the consequences of you started out on a healing path, and we all have free will, so we can turn around and walk back the other way at any time. But you if you're paying attention to your life, you'll see that almost will increase the stress and drama that you're dealing with, because the things that are happening in your life are happening in order to make you a better person, to make you the person that you want to be. So literally everything that is happening to you is a lesson. So once you turn away and say, nope, I'm too scared, I can't deal with that, whatever, then your life will get harder. More shit will happen to you. And so, like during COVID, it was an intensely difficult time. My mental health took a complete dive. And,
I think everybody's did.
yeah, obviously. Exactly. But, my physical health started, the tension of being stressed out and anxious all the time. And I already have damage done to my body, from my military service. So, in other accidents and shit. So, as my anxiety increases, then my muscles tense up, and then my chronic pain flares up, and then these things feed onto each other until you end up in a pretty miserable state. You know what I'm saying? And so then, like a few months into COVID, my a friend who they're now a friend. I didn't even know them at the time. They were a distant relative. And they are also a witch, and I didn't even know that there was anybody else in my family that practiced witchcraft. And she got a hold of my sister and told her to tell me that if I don't start my shadow work, I'm going to end up just like my mom. And I was like, oh, well, it's time to start my shadow work. So then I turned around and intentionally started addressing my trauma. I was naive to think that that was going to be. I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. 2021 is going to be my year to process trauma. I have a lot of trauma, so it's still an ongoing process. But as I do the brave thing, the difficult thing, and Rain, can you close the door? And face that trauma and process that trauma, then I come to be more confident, to be more calm, to have better control of my thoughts and my emotions. Now, all of this is relative. I'm not saying that I'm great at any of these things. I'm saying that as my mental health improves, these qualities that affect how you do magic improves. But that process involves, a series of going through changes that change the way you see the world and the way you see yourself, and finding out all these things about yourself that need to be healed. And that's a difficult process to go through. Healing is a badass thing to do. It takes a lot of courage to face yourself.
I can agree with that. Yeah, facing yourself can be challenging because you are very often very comfortable in the way that you are, and you don't want to change. Regardless of what the change looks like, it'll be, whether it looks to be good or bad. It's just change. Period. You don't want.
Right. If you've ever taken like a psychological stress test, it's just to see how stressed out you are. It's just a series of life events. They ask you questions like, have you been married or divorced? Have you lost weight or gained weight? Have you lost a job or gained a job? Change is stress. It doesn't matter if it has a good effect on our lives or a bad. Obviously, bad change is more stress, but there's still some stress with good change.
Yeah, for example, me existing here at this moment in time, like everything that has happened, like that I talked about at PCR, like going from an abusive relationship, an abusive household to a safer place has been stress. Like stress that I didn't even realize that I was gonna have, really, So, and then also I wanted to say with like the whole facing yourself thing, like that's why most people don't do it. Like it's so hard to face yourself and accept yourself, and then two, try and change yourself, that people just don't do it. Like people shy away from it.
And it's unfortunately, it's deeply ingrained in our culture not to.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, if you just, you look at our heroes, an action hero in a TV show, they don't talk about their feelings. They just shove it down and keep going. Those are the American values. Be stoic, go through horrible trauma without complaining, without shedding a tear, and just keep going with your life. Shut the fuck up and keep working a job and buying shit. Be a good little puppet for the capitalist machine. They don't want you to fucking heal. And even if you go and try to get help, a lot of times they'll just give you some pills, and that might make you feel better and might make you feel worse. Even if you go to therapy, it's not. A lot of times when I went to therapy, I was telling you this the other day, they taught me how not to be angry when they should have been teaching me how to be angry, how to have a right relationship with my anger. They literally taught me to suppress my anger, and that led to other emotional issues later on in my life. So this is counter to everything people have been taught, that instead of suppressing your feelings, suppressing your trauma, suppressing all this shit. If you want to heal, you gotta have to turn around and face yourself.
I think that there's also something to be said for trying to discern what needs to be changed within yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times people will, it happens a lot. It happens a lot in Christianity, thanks to a concept of sin, where people work on problems that aren't really problems.
Right.
They work on things that they've been told, for whatever reason, is something that's displeasing to God.
Right.
And so they struggle with it, quote unquote, and they're always working to overcome it. When really it's not something that's actually a problem. Like, not in the real world. It's not hurting them. It's not hurting anybody. And in some ways it's beneficial, depending on what sort of thing this is. But an important part of healing and being wrong, and then that ties it all the way back to kind of it goes kind of hand in hand with the theme of learning to be wrong and learning to understand that, wait, this thing that I thought was a sin growing up my entire life is actually, not only is it not a sin, it's something that I can improve on and lean into. The most glaringly obvious thing, I think, would be like human sexuality, just
Right.
period. Like, unlearning that whatever thoughts or feelings or things that you want to do are somehow harmful to you or to society, when most things that aren't directly harming somebody, when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to just like developing relationships with like developing relationships with people of comparable personalities, and of course, consenting adults and all that other good stuff. All the legal issues set aside, of course, just learning that whatever desires you have and whatever things that you're feeling inside of yourself aren't necessarily sins, which is to say that they aren't bad things, but you would have to like sort of de-internalize that in a way. You'd have to deconstruct it.
Right.
I think is the word that deconstruction is the word that is used a lot in people recovering from religion. Trying to unlearn that things are sins, because this entire concept of sin and this entire concept of like the watchful eye of God who's constantly judging you for everything you do, like unlearning that and relieving oneself of that sort of stress is extremely important for becoming like mentally healthy, becoming like emotionally healthy, and being able to process emotions properly and
Right.
and all that good stuff. So like understanding what parts of yourself you actually do need to work on, like what parts of yourself are the real actual problems in your life, what is actually like destroying your health, what is actually destroying your relationships and your social relationships, trying to find out like what things are actual problems, and what things have I been told were problems because for one reason or another a group of people believed arbitrarily that something was wrong with me, so they told me something was wrong with me, and I grew up thinking that, and now as an adult I have to like face and relearn that the things that I was taught were wrong with me are actually just a normal part of life, and my actual problems are the guilt that I feel, or the anger that I feel, or the resentment that I feel, or the problems I'm having in my social life or in my adult relationships, because I have this internalized idea of myself being somehow wrong. So learning how to discern those different things, learning how to discern real problems from, for lack of a better phrase, made up problems, is definitely an important part of healing. And of course, realizing that you were wrong about something your entire life is part of it. If you're raised in a religion that teaches you something that is just not wrong, it's just something that the religion decided was wrong, you've got to unlearn that part of yourself.
Exactly. And again, it's more cultural programming, and I point that out a lot because I want people to think about how the messages that they receive day to day in their social media feeds, their news, the shows they watch, what you are feeding yourself, what is it telling you about yourself? You know, like Christianity, that we both grew up in the Christian church, definitely tells you that you're a piece of shit. It's all your fault. There's no good in you. The only thing, if you do something good, it is God working his will through you. On your own, you can only commit sin. That's the kind of extreme thinking that the far right Christian churches teach. Whereas the process of healing is realizing that there is nothing wrong with you. It's a process of becoming who you are, and learning to let go of all of these thoughts that are making you feel like you're a bad person. And it's not just the church, though. You think about your social media feeds, commercials, all these things you're taught. We all receive messages all throughout the day that if you're overweight, there's something wrong with you. If you're not pretty, there's something wrong with you. If you're not going to the gym 6 days of the week, everything is your fault. You're fucking up some way, and all your problems are because you're a piece of shit. We are constantly getting that message, and you gotta learn to let go of those things, to let go of that internal judgment. Now, and you can't, it's not impossible to completely let go of it, but it is possible to stop beating yourself up all the fucking time.
And a lot of that, of course, is driven by consumerism. You know, you are an awful person unless you buy our product. If you the reason your life is so terrible is because you don't have our product, and you would be a much better person if you were to buy things from us.
Yep.
Constantly selling you things, you know, and that's why the news is always like, you know, that's part of why the news kind of does like a sort of evil twin to that, with the fear mongering, where it's like everything's going to be terrible, the world is a terrible place unless you pay attention to us. We'll tell you what to do. We'll keep you safe.
Right, and that's a good example, because like right now in the news we have the whole thing going on with Israel and
Palestine.
I'm sorry.
Palestine.
Yes, thank you. And it's a horrible thing, but this is the thing. The news is designed to keep you emotionally worked up, and it doesn't matter if you're listening to CNN or Fox. CNN is and MSNBC and all these other news sources. They're not as blatant about it as Fox is, but even the liberal news sources are designed to get liberals worked up. The Republican news sources are designed to get the Republicans worked up. They're both owned by the same companies. They're both owned by one person.
Yeah.
And that's an example of what I mean by shifting the way you see the world. I came to understand that through my magical practice of it shifts the way you see things. It shifts the way you understand things. So we are taught, like, hey, if you're to be a good citizen, you need to keep up with the news, and you need to be a concerned citizen. What are you doing to save the environment? What are you doing to save Palestine? What are you doing about the situation? Like, your job is to heal yourself. Your job is to live your life and heal yourself. And all these messages that you're getting throughout the day from different sources are telling you you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to be worried about this, you need to be angry about that. And you kind of have to just fucking disconnect from all that shit and learn to be yourself.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, keeping you fixed. And it's kind of like, I mean, it's one of those things where you know, once you come out of the other side of it, you look at it and just like wow, does no one else notice that this is like pretty blatant propaganda? Like does no one realize like how all of this is deliberately designed to you know, to engage you constantly, because that sort of emotional dependence and that, you know, the outrage cycle that keeps you paying attention and that drives the ratings and the ad sales and drives the consumer consuming the product, and you know, you wonder to yourself, like, does nobody else like realize that that's what's going on? But then you kind of look at you kind of look at the whole thing, and you listen to people's conversations, and after a while you think to yourself, you know, well, at least in my case, I've thought to myself, you know, I think people realize what's going on, but they don't want to admit it because they're comfortable.
Right.
They've gotten comfortable in their outrage because they're constantly being told that they're right about it. You know, like that's why they're so upset. It's like, you know, if you're upset about what's going on in Palestine and about Palestinians being killed, then that's correct. You're right about that. And then they'll build on that with everything. They'll sell you everything, telling you, oh, but you're right about it. Like, and then, or you'd be like, if you're not standing with Israel, then you're anti-Semitic, and
Right.
And you know, so if you're standing with Israel, then you're right. You know, you're right about that, and so you know, tying it again, of course, into the learning to be wrong, like the reason, like a big drive and a big problem in society and in consumerist society is that everybody wants to be right, and everything is designed to make you feel like you're right about everything because that's what makes you give them your money.
Right.
And so, you know, and there's so much cultural conditioning to constantly believe that you're right about everything, and you know, social media is just giant. Social media is just full of everybody's echo chambers, and it always recommends. The algorithm is always recommending the correct. Always recommending people and sites and influencers that agree with you, so that you always feel like you're right about everything. And
yeah, the guest commentators are Buddy and Moxie,
yes,
the cats of the house.
Yeah.
One more cat that has not made an appearance yet. Yeah, and it's really easy that no matter what your political beliefs are, to put yourself in a bubble so you are not being challenged.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, like, understanding, like a big shift. I'll talk about a healing shift that a lot of people are going to need to go through who are going to be listening to this is thinking, like, most witches that I know are lean liberal.
Yeah. So
we look at the conservatives, and we're like, their idea is very, you know, usually very Christian. You're a bad person if you're gay. You're bad if you're trans. You're bad if you're this. You're bad if you're that. You're if you're don't live in the United States. If you're not a Christian, all these things. However, the liberals guilt trip you for not being liberal enough, and it's like a constant thing that goes on. Are you outraged about Palestine? Are you outraged enough to an appropriate level about Palestine? So to be a good liberal, you have to be emotionally disturbed nearly all the time, because there are always problems, and there always has been, and there always will be, and so there is always something to be upset about. So you're still, you know, the liberals tend to think that they are so much better than the Republicans, but the Republicans are mad and the liberals are anxious, and both of these things are literally designed on purpose in order to disrupt you, so you're not paying attention to the important things, which is your fucking self and your journey in life.
Yeah, you can only, like, the only thing a given person can do is improve their own life and the lives of those around them over whom they have, like, an actual influence. Like you can take care of yourself and you can take care of your house, metaphorically speaking, but you know, beyond that, there's almost nothing you can do. Like you can attempt to exert influence, you know, at the right times and in the right places, but yeah, like the internet and the news are constantly telling us that we should be acting now. We have to act now. We have to do this now. And if you don't do this now, you know, then there's something wrong with you. and clearly you're not, then you're letting this happen, and you're part of the problem, and it's like this absolutely overwhelming feeling that is given to people, um, that there's heaping just piles of guilt on them,
Right.
for because you can't do anything about that. And it's like, I think probably the best example of something like this, if I could go on a slight rant here, would be the Nestle Corporation. Nestle, they give us chocolate. They harvest chocolate using child slave labor.
Mm-hmm.
They also will steal water sources, or they'll siphon off water sources.
Our local source.
Or yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're draining Lake Arrowhead and then
Mhm.
selling it back to us
Right.
as Arrowhead water, and they're doing that, and it makes people angry that they're doing that sort of thing. So people are like, all right, well, we need to boycott Nestle, but there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, because 1 out of every 4 food products is owned by Nestle. Like, statistically, like if you go into a grocery store and you look at 4 different types of cheese, one of those cheeses is owned by Nestle.
Right.
And that includes store brands, because of like distributors, because of like we're talking corporate farms. Anything you buy, you have a 1 in 4. Like literally any food product you buy has a 1 in 4 chance of being owned by Nestle. Like it's impossible to avoid, because they do all these things through all their subsidiaries and through all their distributors and through all their different companies. And there's just like, you want to do something about it, so you try your hardest to like boycott things from this company, but you're not going to get away from it, because they're so saturated into the market. And then so like the reverse of that sort of thing would be like the way that our tiny little influence works as an individual person, which is that all you can really do is make the wisest decision with the best that you know, and try to live your life in a way that improves your own life and improves others.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the world is awful, but if you feel so terrible about how awful the world is constantly, it's not going to motivate you to change it.
Right.
And it's part of the reason why social media is so full of it's always full of debates.
Mm-hmm.
It's always full of people arguing, because everybody thinks they're right about something, and it's not designed to win hearts and minds. It's not designed to find compromise. None of these things are designed to allow people to be challenged.
Right.
And it's just, it's
and so people put guilt on you for buying things from Amazon or going to Walmart, or but there's virtue signaling that entails it's basically shaming people for being poor. Because if you're a good little girl, you need to go to Whole Foods and like they say, spend your entire paycheck on groceries so that you are ethically sourcing the food that you put into your mouth. What if you're fucking poor?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have a choice but to go to Walmart, and that's fine. It is not on you to save the fucking world.
No, you can't. Nobody can.
Right, exactly. And we can't even get away from it, because let's say you go to Walmart, and then out front somebody wants you to sign about something for a ballot, and if you don't do it, they get upset, and then you go get yourself a lunch afterwards, and they say, "Oh, would you round up your change to give to this charity?" Which actually, the corporations are writing that off as a tax write-off.
Yeah.
And so they're giving your money, passing your money straight on to the charity, and then writing it off on their taxes. So if you want to give money to charity, give your money to charity. Don't round up. All you're doing is helping the company. They take that little 45 cents that you donated and put it in their pocket. You were giving them profit when you do that. But if you say no, the person at the cashier is always, like, "Oh my God, you are a monster."
Yeah. It's like on that episode of South Park where it's like, "Would you like to round up your change?" And Randy's like, "No, thank you." And it's like, okay, well, well, your change is going to be dispensed in this little cardboard cutout here that's shaped like a starving child.
Right.
And it's like, oh, you got to reach into the child's mouth and pull your change out. Yep, there you go. And he's like fighting it. Like, he's like, it won't come out. He's like, yeah, you really got to just rip that change, rip that money right out of that kid's mouth. And yeah, and it's the same thing. It's a footnote. It's the same thing that they're trying to do with having you tip all the time, because every company wants to turn all of their employees into quote unquote tipped employees. Because as soon as you turn into a tipped employee, they do not have to legally pay you minimum wage anymore. They can pay you less than minimum wage and claim that your tips will make up for giving you enough money to make minimum wage.
Right.
And that's why every stupid company in the world, every retail, every cashier, every time you interact with anybody, it's prompting you to tip them, because these corporations really desperately want to just reach that threshold so that they can say, all right, our employees are tipped now, we don't have to pay them anymore.
Yeah, and that's it, that's yet another example of the crazy mindset that society has. It was within my lifetime that if you had a job, you were a decent citizen. And it wasn't that long ago that most of my uncles were blue collar. Very few of them had any college education. Most of them worked for the auto manufacturers in Indiana, and worked on the, what am I trying to say, production line, building cars, and they all owned homes and went on vacations and had nice retirements.
Mm-hmm.
But now it is considered that, oh, you have a job, well, you should have been a lawyer. There's if you don't have a job there's like, we are almost becoming a caste system. People look down on you and say, oh, you just flip burgers? Well, why do you think you should be able to pay rents? You're so greedy, And 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I flipped burgers and I lived on my own and paid rent and had a car and lived my own life, working full time for McDonald's. But those full time jobs have been taken away. Wages have been stagnant. Now, when I worked for Walmart for a while, I worked for Walmart for 3 years, and I would get 2 raises they would have to do 2 performance reviews. And you would get a raise every 6 months if you were doing well. But now I know people who've been working for Walmart for 20 years who've never received a wage. The minute Sam Walton died, Walmart was like, fuck you to everybody, the employees and the consumers.
His extremely rich children were just like, you know what? We kind of like profits more than we like paying people.
Right. And everything is like literally designed. People say, everybody's stressed out, and this is what I mean by learning to be wrong, because through spiritual practice, I can say these things, but you're not really going to understand them until you have your own spiritual practice and you come to know these things by your own experiences. That all of this is just made up bullshit. It's all just the rules are made up and they don't matter.
Yeah.
What you need to focus on is yourself and your life and your path. Who do you want to be? What kind of life do you want to have? And really just lean into being the completely and totally wonderful, weird fucking person that you are. And to do that, you have to disconnect from all of this mind fuck that we've all been fed our entire lives. Trauma, cultural programming, religious programming, abuse, public fucking education. Jesus Christ, that's designed to keep you stupid.
Yeah, it is. It's designed to make you into a good factory worker. It's not designed to make you like a critical thinker.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of such double-edged swords, people do tend to point out things about Walmart. Like, Walmart deliberately pays their employees low enough wages so that many of them eventually become dependent on EBT. And the best part about that is, where else would you take your food stamps except for Walmart? And Walmart gets all kinds of tax benefits from accepting food stamps.
Yeah, the government is literally giving Walmart money.
Yeah, so basically, Walmart lets us buy their employees' food.
Yes.
Is essentially what's happening.
Right.
But by the same token, and Walmart's horribly abusive to their employees, but by that same token, Walmart hires anyone. And there are not many companies that do that.
Right.
Like Walmart will hire disabled people. They'll hire ex-felons. They'll hire people who don't even speak English but desperately need money. They hire anybody at all. And
you could same thing about Amazon.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of shit that I don't like about Amazon, but shit, there was an Amazon package in front of the door when I got home from work today.
Yeah.
and
Amazon does the same type of thing.
Yeah, and Amazon will hire anybody, and there's a lot of people I know. The work that I do, I am coming into contact every day with people who are they are the bottom of the social strata. Mm-hmm. They're struggling.
Yeah.
And I'm basically like a welfare social caseworker is basically what I do. And a lot of times if they're looking for work, we'll send them to Amazon because Amazon will fucking give anybody a chance. Now they're a horrible employer.
Yeah.
But still, like this is the situation that we're living in.
Yeah. Money is better than zero money.
Right. Right.
Like getting something is better than having nothing at all.
Right. And if you can figure out like the younger generation are figuring out how to not have jobs, and that's great.
That is great.
And I think honestly we need to. The system is crumbling. Who knows if it's actually going to fall apart? People are saying that we're in end-state capitalism. Maybe we are, and maybe we aren't. Because the reality is that capitalism died during the Great Depression on Black Friday. That's when capitalism died. But there is a pact between the oligarchy and the government that when the oligarchy runs the fucking economy into the ground, the government bails them out. And we've done it before, and the government has basically been full-time in the job of keeping capitalists going since the 2007 recession.
Yeah.
We are enabling them. So yeah, it looks like the economy is heading off the cliff, but we don't know what last minute save that the government's going to pull out their ass. And in a lot of ways, the drama is manufactured to keep us all on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Yeah, and it's interesting you should say that they're learning how to live without jobs. And, so if you look at the evolution of a job interview, there was a time period where you sent your resume to the employer, or, you filled out your application. They would review all your paperwork. They would review the paperwork of the candidates, and eventually they would decide on who the best candidate was and who was best qualified for the job, and they would hire that person. And the interview was more of a formality. It was more of a way of just making sure that the person on the paper is the same person that's actually going to show up to the job. Mm-hmm. And then as more and more people became overqualified for the jobs that they were applying for, thanks to things like college degree, everybody goes to college now, so you have where you once had 10 people applying for a job, now you have 150 people applying for the same position.
Right.
So then the resumes, everybody's qualified and everybody's looking for the same sort of things work to do. So then the job interview turns into a way of selling yourself. So people have to start learning how to sell themselves in order to get jobs. Like now it doesn't matter how qualified you are, how much experience you have, or what your education is, because you're the same as 1,000 other people who have that exact same set of qualifications.
I read a sci-fi book a while back where the way you got a job in the corporate world was to kill the person who has that job, and then you just show up to work and take their place.
I mean, how far are we away from that, really?
Right.
But the thing is though is that so now you have generations of people who are growing up, and they're not learning necessarily skills. They're just checking all the boxes, and then they're going out and selling themselves. And then eventually it was going to get to this point where they became the brand.
Right.
Because you're already your brand when you're trying to sell yourself to corporate America. But then it became a point there was a breaking point finally where people said, hey, thanks to the internet and social media, I can just sell myself directly to the people instead of selling myself to a company.
Right.
And that's where influencers come from.
Mm-hmm.
So these old people who complain about influencers who don't work and blah, 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 and all this stuff, and they're teaching kids and corrupting the youth, and it's like, my guy, you created the system.
Right.
That this was the end game.
Right.
This was the end game of the system. Like, the individual was going to like, the individual would have to become the brand, and eventually the individual would realize that they can just sell themselves directly to the public.
Well, and that's our whole system functions on greed, and the purpose of our system is to enable greed.
Yeah.
And
which is too bad, because greed is never satisfied.
Exactly. So greed is never satisfied, but occasionally the oligarchs forget that in order for the system to function, the people at the lowest level, the working class, need to at least be able to pay their bills.
Yeah.
They need to not be so stressed out about everything. Every time inflation gets high, and now we're heading into stagflation, and that's a fucking nightmare. Yeah. And every single time this happens, this has happened in the 80s, this happened in the 90s. This is a frequent thing that America goes through. Mm-hmm. And yeah, people are starting to talk about, hey, look, motherfuckers, we will barbecue you and eat you if you don't fucking let us have a little tiny goddamn crumb from your huge banquet so I can pay my fucking bills. Most people, like, we're not, most of us are not trying to live extravagantly. No. We're just trying to live.
Trying to drive to work and buy ourselves something stupid every once in a while, like
Mm-hmm.
and it's markedly interesting, and this is another conversation I actually had recently at work. One of my coworkers was looking at Italy, because in Italy is one of those countries where they just have too many damn castles, and they'll pay you to go to the castle and maintain it, to like turn the castle back into something that it used to be,
Mm-hmm.
restore the castle, and they'll pay you to live there. And all these buildings are gorgeous. They are gorgeous. This is architecture that was designed to be not just enjoyed, but to strike people full of awe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're supposed to go in front of these buildings and just be awestruck by how beautiful they are. And there was a time period during the Cold War where we were ridiculing the architecture of the so-called brutalism of the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's made out of concrete. Well, unfortunately, the U.S. somehow got lost in our own version of brutalism, which
Mm-hmm.
is modern design.
Which is ugly as fuck.
It's ugly as fuck. I mean, you see all these extremely wealthy people now, and you look at their houses, and their houses they look like community colleges.
Mm-hmm.
They just live in these giant glass boxes that look like an office building, because that's the modern way. And you go into their houses, and everything is white and sterile and stark, and there's no livability.
Looks
to
like
it.
a mausoleum.
I know, as I said, one of the most ridiculously, like, culturally specific contextual phrases you can say is something that I say about these houses of rich people, which is, what I say is, miss me with your community college bullshit. I'm gonna live in an Addams Family ass house when I'm rich.
Mm-hmm.
So there's none of that anymore. There's no longer the beauty of the architecture, and along with that, so it's like there's no more art, there's no more enjoyment, there's no more, and it's kind of, it's notable that sort of lack of enjoyment of life starts to filter into other parts of society, because as the wealthy are turning away from the beauty of architecture and starting to live in these glass houses that are up on hills and aren't pleasing to look at, they've also stopped putting their names on things. There was a time period where, like Carnegie Hall, your symphony halls and your museums, they were always named after the rich person who built it.
And now they're named after the rich corporation who built it.
Yeah, now they're named after the biggest sponsor of that person, because the rich people don't have time for that anymore. They don't want to give us parks. They don't want to give us. They have no interest in beautifying the world anymore. They only want to hoard their money, and for what? Like, you look at the behavior of rich people now, it doesn't make, back in the day, like, Like if you were rich, you would travel the entire world. You would buy people that you liked houses. Like you'd be like, hey, yeah, buy your mom a house and a car, and spend the rest of your time collecting your money in Bora Bora or the Cayman Islands or something like that. Like you would live, because if you had the money to live, you would live.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore. All the rich people are on the internet,
Right.
making stupid ass statements and complaining about the world around them and complaining about people don't want to work and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Or they turn into like Elon Musk, the edge lord, who wants like all of this, who doesn't seem to understand that getting all of the people who hate, like it's like he's catering to this like far right manly men sort of alpha male mentality, and then he doesn't understand why none of his electrical vehicles are selling. Like,
Right.
like bro, like though if you're trying to sell something that's progressive and seen as but doesn't make like the noise of a giant truck, you're not going to sell it to your crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So and then everybody goes out and buys the Cybertrucks, which don't fucking work anyway. So
Right.
those things are ugly. But yeah, like there's no more interest in making the world better.
Right. And that's when you because the whole point here is to heal. We're talking about magic for mental health.
Yeah.
So the whole point of what we're doing is like, I'm not trying to teach people how to do magic. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Magic is an innate ability that we all have. What I'm trying to do is teach people how to do magic better.
Mm-hmm.
And these are skills that instead of saying you need to learn tarot and you need to learn this and you need to buy black clothes and you need to have none of that is really makes you a witch. What makes you a witch is a certain way of living in the world, a certain way of being in the world. The root word for witch, wizard, wise, and Wicca is all the same, and that means to know. So a witch knows. It knows something that most other people don't know, and you can only attain that knowledge through these spiritual experiences, spiritual adventures that will challenge your beliefs of reality. They will challenge your beliefs of civilization. They will challenge your beliefs of yourself. So developing the resilience to understand that that you don't know. The beginning of wisdom is admitting that you don't know. Mm-hmm. Socrates and Solomon both said roughly the same thing, that the way you think the world works is wrong.
I only know that I know nothing.
You only know that you know nothing. And the more you're able to ease up on that and just realize that we do not understand how reality works, and that's not really the point. What white people have this obsession with explaining why and how everything works. I cannot explain to you how magic works. I cannot explain to you how healing works. That's not the point. The point is doing it. That's what you're here for. You're here to do. You're here to live. You're here to experience. You are not necessarily here to understand. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's this what I'm talking about when I say learning to be wrong is a flexibility of your mind, a resilience of your soul, of being able to have these experiences and process these big emotions that come with these experiences, and to even that out with being nice to yourself. Do some healing and then take a rest and be nice to yourself, and then do some healing and take a rest and be nice to yourself. I have a tendency to push myself too hard when it comes to healing. So you should gently push yourself to improve, and improving doesn't mean trying. Improving entails learning how to not try, learning how to just be, how to just exist. Mm-hmm. But there's one other way that I want to talk about when I say learning to be wrong, and the way I do magic and the way I'm basically telling people, what we're talking about is a spirit-based magical practice. The large percentage of my magical practice involves introducing myself to certain spirits, developing a relationship with them, and we're having a relationship of equal exchange with these spirits. A lot of magicians, a lot of witches they treat these entities like they are they are psychological models. So you know, today I'll do an offering to Jupiter, next week to Artemis, and then over to Kali, and it's much your magic works much better if you have a strong relationship with I call it my spirit team. I have my spirit team, and that includes my ancestors, my spirit helpers, you know, some nature spirits, and I have developed these relationships over a long period of time. Now, the way in the Western tradition of magic is to strong arm spirits into doing what you want. You read any grimoire, and they're like, this is how you get spirits to do what you want.
Yeah.
You trap them, you threaten them, you ridicule them, you punish them, and then you force them to do. That's a very capitalist way of doing magic. And that's another goal of what we're trying to do here, is to decolonize magic. So I don't force my spirits. I develop relationships with my spirits. And guess what? The same skills that help you get along with people help you get along with spirits. When you start building relationships with spirits, they're going to show you how the things that you are doing wrong, the things the habits, the actions, the thoughts, they're going to start helping you on your healing path. And they are not nice. My ancestors are brutal sometimes about pointing out the error of my ways. They don't give a fuck about my fucking feelings. and so same with human people, because a healing part of the healing path is developing a strong relationship with your chosen people, especially if you're LGBT, if you're queer. Like most of the time, we need to have our own families, and this is my family. This is our family, and the same skills that help you get along with people and saying, oh, you know what, I did something shitty, I'm wrong, my bad, I fucked up, I will apologize, admit the error of my ways, and I will try to do better. Those same skills apply to the spirit world. If you make a contract with the spirit that, hey, every Sunday I will give you an offering of fruit and water and incense, and Sunday comes out and you go out to the beach and you come back home and crash and go to bed, and all of a sudden that spirit is pissed off at you, you don't, you know, like, the best thing to do is to apologize and make up for it, just like if you piss off a person, because spirits are people. So, you know, I'm at the point in my magical practice now where I barely have to do anything. If I want something, all I have to do is sit down in front of my ancestors when I have one of 3 altars and have a conversation with them and explain to them what I need. I don't really like do big spells anymore very often, because I have this reciprocal relationship that I have built over a long period of time, and magic. Your magic improves, which means your chances of success of getting what you're doing magic for improves if, number one, I've already talked about, you're doing it to meet your needs, not your wants, and number 2, you are living in right relationship with the community around you, including the spirits, the people you live with, the environment you are in, and the spirits that are around you, that are on your spirit team. Being a person that gets along with other people helps you on your way.
Yeah, it's definitely something I can get behind. So, yeah, because learning how to be a good person with spirits and with the people around you is the only way that a tiny little person like ourselves can improve the world around us.
We can't really, you know, I remember that song, I cannot save you, I can't even save myself. Like, it's a huge amount of stress was relieved off of my shoulders the day I stopped trying to save the world.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny, because the only way to really save the world is to save oneself.
It's to save, exactly. What we're trying to teach here is a way to help you, like a way to use magic to improve your external and internal situation in life, to heal, to get to the life that you want to live, whatever that looks like. And I'm not saying do what I do. What I'm saying is you need to build certain skills. listening and having a flexibility of your mind, and we'll talk about more skills that you can develop that help you do magic, and these are this. It doesn't matter if you're doing hoodoo, you're doing Wicca, or you have an eclectic practice like I do. It doesn't matter. Building these skills is going to help you on your spiritual journey and on your magical path, and that's the whole point, because my goal is to get as many people on the healing path as I can, because that is really the only way that we are going to save the world, is if each individual person starts healing themselves.
Yeah. Yes. And in a world that profits and therefore has a vested interest in keeping you scared and stressed and upset and angry, it's healing oneself is an act of rebellion. Right.
And like, I know that a lot of what I say can come off sounding like conspiracy theorists. I don't really consider them conspiracies. If you look, it's like the information is right there. They're not really hiding what they're doing.
No.
You just have to pay attention to it, And but really, I only think that I say that there's only one conspiracy, and that is to keep you from your power. And that conspiracy is in religion, that conspiracy is in capitalism, that conspiracy is in politics, that conspiracy is in consumerism, materialism, because they're like, think about the Matrix, the movie, where a person is a battery.
Yeah.
You are a battery keeping the capitalist system alive. They want you to be traumatized enough to work your entire life and buy shit and die, without being too traumatized that you become a burden on the system. But if you do become too traumatized, they immediately cease to give a fuck about you.
Yeah.
And so really if you want to heal, you have to become selfish,
Yeah.
You have to just say, I am not going to worry about all these millions of people over here telling me how much of a piece of shit I am. I'm going to tune that out. I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to create art. I'm going to create beauty. I'm going to have beautiful relationships. I'm going to heal. I'm going to be who I am. That is literally your job. That is your purpose of why you are here living this life right now.
Yes. I think that's an excellent place to end it.
All right. Well, I will say that we are Prism Witches. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Anywhere else? TikTok. We have a website, and we would appreciate likes and shares and feedback from y'all. Tell us what you think. I love you all, and blessed be.
Blessed be.